So on YouTube, we see a lot of things about success. We see people 10xing their money with different investments that they're making, and a lot of, I guess, bragger going on in the industry. And so one thing that I try to focus on is being completely transparent with this channel. And over the past year and a half, I've gone through a lot of hardships, both personally and financially. And I want to talk about some of those and the lessons that I've learned in doing so. Now, if you guys are brand new to this channel and you're just coming here for the first time, well, I want to say welcome. My name is Dalton. This is Diligence TV. And on this channel, we talk about all things personal finance and investing related. And the elephant in the room, what happened this past year and a half is I bought my very first rental unit, or rental property rather. It's a duplex. It took me about a year to renovate to move into the top 3-bedroom unit. Fixed up the downstairs unit. It's a 2-bedroom unit now. It used to be a 1-bedroom unit, but we were finally at the point where we're going to be renting that out likely by the end of this month. So really excited for that. Actually just took the pictures for it to be listed. So yeah, it's been a really long journey with that. Speaking to that, that's where a lot of the financial issues that I've had have stemmed. I'm somebody who is very prideful in how I've handled my finances up until this point, making really sound, solid investments and, growing my wealth as a 20-something-year-old, being able to have different income sources coming in. I've really taken all of these necessary steps to benefit myself financially in the future, and I haven't really slowed down. And that's a lie, because over this past year and a half, I pretty much screeched to a halt. Now, I was making about 3 to 5 videos per week on YouTube for a very long time. And you'll notice that about a year and a half ago, that started slowing as well. And that was as a direct result of the time and effort that I had focused on YouTube, focused on investing, shifting directly to this investment property. And so it really took a lot of my time, a lot of my effort, and it was just draining me emotionally, physically. And, it's been that journey that I've talked about that I've struggled with. What I want to talk about is sort of how I've overcome some of that stuff. And I really just wanted to showcase and just show you guys, this is something that I've struggled with. And I want to be able to, help out the next person who sees themselves in a similar situation that I do and how I kind of got through it. So when it comes to struggles financially, there's really 5 issues that people often have. They are in debt. Maybe they have struggles creating an emergency savings. They don't have a long-term vision or long-term goals with their finances. They can't really manage their cash flow. And if an unexpected expense comes up, they can't really deal with it. And so I struggled with a decent majority of these. Debt. I took on some debt. It's not bad debt because it's 0% interest finance debt for work that was done on the property that was really mandatory and had to be done to make it up to code, to get it safe enough for people really to live here and rent out. So that was stuff I needed to do. And then it was also with my emergency savings. I don't want to say, well, actually, I kind of blew through my emergency savings as a part of what I was spending on this property. Like, I pretty much took my bank account down to 0, and I still had my investments in Robinhood and my Roth IRA and my 401k, and all of those are still intact to this day. And I didn't even need to dip into those, which has been a blessing. And I'm finally sort of like clawing myself back up financially. But for a while, I really didn't have an emergency fund. And if you know general principles, speaking about finances, that is the most important thing to do. And it's super critical to have an emergency fund. So then on top of that, I guess long-term saving isn't really a massive issue because I was still investing into my 401k and I was still doing, making at the end of the day, this property is a long-term investment. And though it's a struggle up front, I do think that, even with market appreciation to this day, I'd be making money if I sold it. Now, another issue, just managing my cash flow. I got really lazy, as I was mentioning before, and just, ceased to track where my expenses were going. And then dealing with unexpected expenses, that was throughout this process. Luckily, I had a lot of cash saved up from previous ventures, but it was unexpected expense after the other. We would need to, I got water damage from my roof and we had to open up the ceiling of the attic. And when I did that, it needed to all be re-insulated. There were, foundation issues, cockroaches when I first bought it. There was just so many different things that kept coming up and it seemingly would never end. Even the other day, I was screwing in a closet for the downstairs unit, literally like the last project I needed to do in order to list it. And and I used a stud finder. I did everything right, and I pretty much just put a screw through one of the plumbing pipes, which was frustrating for me because I felt like it was like the last project and I could finally get it listed. And then I went out in the basement, saw the water dripping, and had to address that. So there's been a lot of things that have come up that maybe weren't so expensive, but there's for a large majority of it, it was just continuing to shell out more money and digging myself more of a financial hole. So really the first thing for me is that I needed to stop making excuses. And this is something that I just find pretty weird that it happened to me, right? I've dealt with a number of different things in my past that I think really helped formulate how I cope with different things. Throughout, all these different hardships that I've been thrown at me, I have had nothing but motivation to, better myself and work harder. And for some reason, that kind of didn't carry over with this real estate purchase. Instead, I decided I was going to make excuses for why things went wrong. Maybe I picked the wrong inspector. Maybe if I had gone with a different property, or if I didn't buy into real estate altogether. There were a lot of things that have ran through my mind. And, hindsight is 2020 is what they say. When I realized that, this is the situation that I put myself in, right? I could have gone the extra mile and had more people come in for inspections. I knew that there were things that were definitely off with this property. I just didn't anticipate how many things were off. When I realized that this is a direct result of my own doing, then I really could start to formulate how I could get through it. And so again, that was just stop making excuses for myself. And then I decided it would be right to create an actionable plan. So one thing that I also pride myself on is generally my financial principles. I feel like I'm pretty sound with how I think about finances and not taking on bad debt. And I talk about it throughout my YouTube channel, which was crazy to me because in reality, once I made this purchase, I stopped sort of tracking a lot of things. I stopped tracking where my money was going because it just became normal for me to shell out large quantities of money for work that I needed to get done. Both my time was sunk into this property as well as a majority of my finances. It wasn't uncommon for me to write a $5,000 check one week, a $15,000 check another week, and, so on and so forth, to the point where I got really just, fed up with it and stopped looking so narrowly at where my money was going. And you'll see that recently I put out a budget tracker that I'm going to be doing in Google Sheets. And that's also been sort of a motivation to get some of that stuff kickstarted, is so that way I'm actually practicing what I'm preaching, because this is really, really important for me. Now, for me, debt is like I'm holding a boulder up on my chest and it just feels like it's crushing me. And so I really needed to sit down and create an actionable plan for how I could get out from underneath that debt that I've created. And at the end of the day, like, I could sell off my investments just to pay off that debt, but it wouldn't really be the wisest decision for me because there's no interest that is being charged for the debt that I need to pay. But it's around 8 to 10 grand right now. And I've done all the calculations and I should be able to pay it off by, February, March of this year. But before I did that, it just felt like I was tossing it down the road. I wasn't really looking at, how am I going to get myself out from underneath this? I just kept spending and spending. And then all of a sudden the holiday season's here and it becomes even harder to save. So ultimately what I decided to do was break it down into chunks and figure out how I could get myself on track. And I really started doing this a few months ago when I kind of sat down and looked at myself in the mirror and was questioning, where I was headed, what my goals and aspirations were. Because I think if you asked Dalton from a year and a half ago, it would be entirely different to how I am today. I think even back then, just watching some of the videos, the energy that I brought to the table and all of my sharings that I had was so much higher than where it is right now. And I really want to get that passion back too. So that's what I'm working so hard at. And on top of that, I decided it was time for me to have several different changes in my life. You see, I switched my 9-to-5 job in the midst of all this and, really happy with where I'm at now. And I also started working towards plans to build out more income streams. I think the general stat for most millionaires is having 7 different income streams coming in. And I'm at about 7 right now, which is crazy, with what will soon be the rental real estate, investing, my 9-to-5 job, YouTube, affiliate marketing, and so on and so forth. And I'm fully planning on covering that in an entire video, just focusing on how much money I'm making through these passive or semi-passive income streams as well, because I think that it's really important for everybody out there to diversify and figure out different ways to earn income, because honestly, the 9 to 5 job just in today's day and age isn't cutting it. So realistically, I mentioned that like I guess it's still not necessarily terrible financial decisions, because there are things that needed to be done with this property and things that, you know, are going to better myself eventually financially in the future. But for the short term, it really took away a lot of my motivation and made it hard, because I wanted to be able to showcase those successes and I didn't want to be seen as a failure. And it really demotivated me, because all of my money was being siphoned from what I was doing previously with investing and building out this YouTube channel, reinvesting it into the YouTube channel as well. I had to put it into real estate, and I tried making a couple different real estate videos, which was, you know, not necessarily my passion, didn't really stick well with people here on YouTube. And a lot of people wanted to just see me constantly making videos about the stock market, investing my own personal money, showcasing it, and doing that type of thing, which I didn't feel like I could fully do, because I couldn't even, I wasn't looking at the market. I wasn't putting in the time, the effort, and honestly didn't have the finances to keep throwing into and investing into the stock market. But I feel like that is all going to change now. I feel like this is really that turning point of, we're going to be renting out that bottom unit. Things are going to be on track. I'm going to be back into stock and investing content. And I think that's what really fires me up. That's where my passion is. You can see it with all the videos that I put out in the past. And that's where I'm really excited, because I feel like I'm finally getting back on track there. So anyways, guys, if you made it this far, it would really mean a lot for me just to show me some support. Click that like button. If you've been with me throughout this whole journey, I really appreciate it. I can't express how much like encouragement I was getting through you guys. Even some of the tips that you'd put as I was putting out videos and talking about some of the struggles that I was having was super helpful for me. Those reaching out to me on Instagram, whatever, like, it means so much to me. I can't even explain it. So thank you guys so much for all the continued support. And Jacob, you're the man.